Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of VMTV Vaults with myself, Kyle Dimond, and my guest for this episode, Mr. Leigh Mitchell. Leigh is going to be fighting in the main event on Saturday, the 9th of October. That is Cage Warriors Academy Southeast, going down in Colchester. He will be fighting for the vacant flyweight title after competing in Cage Warriors for most of his pro career to this point. He fought on the Trilogy events in his last two fights and they didn't go his way, but he faced some top opposition, and now he has an opportunity to really rebuild some momentum. So we talked about that. We talked about the differences of fighting on a smaller academy show, but obviously being in the main event, so it's a very different thing to fighting on a Trilogy. And we talked about the improvements he's made after those last two losses. Of course, we touched upon the fact that he trains out of Team BKK as well, with the likes of Arnold Allen and Corey McKenna. So all of that and more. Thank you to Leigh for his time. I can't wait for that fight. Great to see Cage Warriors doing something a little bit different and showing faith in him. Without further ado, Mr. Leigh Mitchell. I guess the first. I'll wait. There you go. I guess the thing that I wanted to start with that I thought was interesting was that your last two fights were on Cage Warriors, and now your main event in one of the academy shows. When did you find that out, and was it a conversation that happened, or were you just told that this was happening?
I was told. I was told that was happening. Usually Jack don't really ask about. Well, he does ask about fights, but this one he didn't. He sent me a poster and was like, "This is happening."
Okay.
So that's the way that went.
Fair enough. Did you have in your mind that you were like, there's a Trilogy coming up, maybe I'll fight? Like, were you aiming to fight around this time anyway, so that when it was offered, it was like, well, a fight's a fight?
We're always in the gym anyway, like everyone is. So a lot of the time, as soon as something pops up, someone's ready for it. Like everyone will be within reason of being able to make weight within at least a few weeks if they need to, really. Well, when they've been in the gym regular for a long time anyway. But yeah, like you're saying about the last two on Cage Warriors, I didn't have my eye on this Trilogy per se, just because obviously didn't get the results I wanted on the Cage Warriors Trilogies before. So I thought it was realistically a time to probably try and rebuild, like get my record back, build up my career a little bit. Not necessarily taking any easier fights or anything like that, but I already kind of, in my mind, wasted two big opportunities really, to get those results that I wanted. And I thought maybe let's just get everything right and maybe iron out the creases a little bit and get on my game, get a few wins back on my side, then hopefully get in some big fights again, realistically.
I'm assuming that's where they're coming from with it as well, because, they could have easily just, like, the fact that they've still found a spot for you in Cage Warriors. I think it makes sense from that standpoint of they're like, essentially what you just said, just getting another fight in there just to, like you said, not an easy fight, but a fight to help you get back with some momentum and then see where we go from there. Is it less pressure as well that it's not another Trilogy card? Does that an element to it? I know that obviously this is a main event of an academy show, but obviously it's not another Trilogy event.
Yeah, that's true. I wouldn't say there's necessarily maybe a little bit less pressure, just because obviously with those Trilogies you don't want to keep messing up those chances to get the result. I know I don't know if you've seen the fights or whatever, but I didn't feel like they were bad performances. Like had definitely had my moments in both those fights. They were super competitive fights against two really good guys, so at that level, like, you can't afford to make mistakes and stuff like that. So that's kind of just the way it went. But obviously it's frustrating that I did get to show clippets of what I can do, but I still didn't come away with the results. Two fights on the bounce. So that was annoying, but I'll say it's just got to kind of get a few wins back on my side and keep training and keep working hard. As long as I'm making the improvements, the wins will come. It obviously just wasn't my time at that moment, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Another thing that I first sort of noticed when I like one of the things that caught my eye straight away was that when looking at your record, from your pro and amateur records, that is, there's a lot of names in there that like I associate with either, I mean, just some big names in Cage Warriors in general, but also some guys that have like been being talked about in and around Cage Warriors for quite a long time. Like, and I suppose, like you said, with your attitude to taking fights, it makes sense. But that's got to be a big part of it as well. Is like these aren't losses to guys that are like losing fights and things like that. Like these are guys that are on the rise and stuff. So it's like,
tricky, isn't it? It's a real tricky one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically my point, was that, you know, like these fights that you've had, and like I said, even in some of your amateur fights, like there are some guys in there that are like, they are no joke. Like, so a loss to them is like, it's not that big of a step back.
It isn't, but also still, it's annoying that some of those big names, if I'd maybe have beaten a couple of those guys, it could have slingshotted me slightly further along or something like that. But then you got to think, if I was making some mistakes in the more recent fights, maybe I wouldn't have been ready for that slingshot anyway at the time, or would have still had to kind of carried on learning, putting everything together. And like, I feel like that's the hardest thing. It's just like for anyone really, is doing it. I mean, everyone can grapple, everyone can wrestle, everyone can strike. Like, but it's just putting it all together and staying composed and sticking to your game plans and stuff like that. Like, I'd say I've only got better at that since I really, in my Cage Warriors fights, really. I mean, I've never stood for more than a couple minutes before getting the takedown, and kind of just trying to not play it safe, but be where I was more comfortable. Whereas I knew I'd like stand up ability and stuff like that, but I just didn't have the composure to really relax and use it, which I feel like that's, for me, that's the biggest thing that I'm happy that has progressed in my game, is that composure element and being able to relax and just because that's what all the best guys, you see how composed they are and stuff like that, and you can see their skills come from that. Everyone has skills kind of in the gym, like you see some of those guys who are really good in the gym, but on the night it's just difficult. On the night, under like keeping it all together is difficult.
Has that been a big like theme for these last two fights then? Like really trying to get that composure in, so that just let your skills do the talking, and obviously that can come once you've got that composure in there.
I'd say like so much when you're relaxed and stuff like that, and everyone puts in a full camp and everyone works really hard in the gym anyway. But it's who can kind of put it together on the night, really, isn't it? Like some of those guys, if you see them sparring and that, it might not be the same scenario, but who can kind of hold it together, not make the mistakes, and stick to their game plans and stuff like that. That's what I feel like, that's a big thing for guys who are fighting at like a decent level. So if I can do that, then I'm pretty happy. Look, my skills will show, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You mentioned the gym there. Yeah, totally. You mentioned the gym there, so we'll get into that finally. Obviously training at a BKK, which is one of those gyms that it's kind of one of those things it's happened loads in the last few years with UK MMA, where sort of one guy pops up and makes a bit of a name, and then suddenly you start seeing guys pop up here and there, and you just start making all the connections and stuff. Tell me about training there and who to keep an eye out for.
I've been training there for quite a few years now, to be fair, since I was maybe 17 or 18 probably. But we've got loads of guys, obviously, like guys like Arnold and Corey, who have gone on to do really good things in the UFC and stuff like that. We've got Steve, who's fought for the featherweight belt on Cage Warriors. We've got a lot of amateur guys and stuff that are coming through. So there's like experience levels from kind of guys who are even making their amateur debut to guys who are fighting in the UFC, like, and we're all training together. Like Arnold's down at the minute, so like it's obviously good to have someone like that on the mat. Like maybe after sparring or whatever, you can pick his brain a little bit, or you get some other guys like, well, I'll try and get rounds in with Steve, and just try and get rounds in with like the more experienced guys and stuff like that, because it's worth its weight in gold, really, isn't it? But obviously the coaching is brilliant under like getting jiu-jitsu with Sean Carter and Jason Coolidge, who are like pro veterans as well. Jack Mason, obviously, the head coach, who's had a billion fights, and just kind of taking all their knowledge as well, like, because they've all got so much knowledge. I'm just trying to sponge it all up and just get as good as I can, really, and just learn off of all the different guys and try and pick everyone's brain who is more experienced than I am and who's gone and done good things, and just try and follow in their footsteps, really.
Sweet. Leigh, thank you so much for your time. All the best for the fight. Can't wait to see you back fighting in Cage Warriors and hopefully get that win. See you on a Trilogy sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. Cheers for your time.
Cheers, mate. Have a good day, yeah? Cool.
Yeah, Andrew.
In a bit. Thank you so much for watching this episode with myself and Mr. Leigh Mitchell. Remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode of VMTV Vault. And also make sure you don't miss his fight on Saturday the 9th of October at the Cage Warriors Academy Southeast show. That is in Colchester. If you've never been to one of these events or never seen them, they are fantastic. And I'm sure you'll see a bunch of guys that will soon make their way to the main roster of Cage Warriors. Obviously, Leigh's been there before, so hopefully with a win here, he will go straight back into the big show. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.